Right, we're off again. It's week 14, Barclays Premier League, and this is my take on the Saturday fixtures. I've had a bit of a trim on the old beard. Maybe it looks a little bit tidier for you. There were 4 matches on Saturday. I'm going to go through them. I struggled last night for some reason. Could not get any live coverage. So this is all based on highlights, and they were pretty scrappy, it has to be said. But with regard to the first match, the early kickoff was at Selhurst Park. It was Crystal Palace at home to Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, at the top, courtesy of that victory over Spurs in the week. Palace fought a hard draw, hard-earned point with West Ham, but they were without Benteke, who got a red on that night, and but they did have Cahill back at the back, and also Ayew was in for Benteke. For the Reds, Matip was back alongside Jorginho, or is it Urbinho? Get it right. Minamino was up front. Salah rested on the bench. Salif Keita was in. Oxlade-Chamberlain on the bench. So away we went. And the champions didn't take long before they established who was in charge of this one. Some excellent work by Mane, fed Minamino, and some quick feet from him, and he got his shot away, and it went in the corner. Gaetan, absolutely no chance. That's 1-0 after 2 minutes. Ayew had an opportunity and laid it off to Sahar, but his control was poor. Schlepp shot wide on 31, but then 4 minutes later, another neat move with Firmino, and Mane got on the end of it, and his strike hit the net, and it was clinical stuff from the champions, and they were already 2 to the good. Well, they made it 3 just before the break, a courtesy of a great Robertson delivery to the far post, and Firmino took it in his stride. It was a beautiful piece of play by the Brazilian, and he then flicked it wide of the keeper. 3-0. Talk about nonchalance. And so effectively the game was all over. 3-0 at the break. Palace hadn't played bad. It was just that Liverpool were playing at the top of their game. Beautiful teamwork on 51 enabled club captain Henderson's curled shot. Arnold set that move in motion with a great assist, and that was 4-0. And then we had a couple of efforts that went just wide from Mane and Menino, but then 67 minutes, Firmino again set free, an audacious clip over the goalkeeper. Again Arnold and Salah who'd come on in the build-up, and that was 5-0. Well, Salah, of course, had come on as a substitute, and he decided it was time to get in on the act, and on 80 he managed to get a headed deflection to a header from Matip from a corner, and that was 6. And then to really put the icing on the cake, 84 minute, he curled in another audacious effort, and it was 7-0. Unbelievable stuff, really, from the champions. The interviews, post-match interviews, well, of course, Klopp was ecstatic as usual, but what can you say? Poor old Hodgson really felt sort of embarrassed, really, but he didn't really hammer his side. He just sort of basically put it down to a bad day at the office. Well, it certainly was, and what a fantastic performance by the champions. Final score at Selhurst Park: Crystal Palace 0, Liverpool 7. Next up was Manchester City, their visit to Southampton. Southampton currently 4th at the beginning of this week's fixtures. City languish down the table a bit, but they have been slowly improving. The team news, well, Redmond was still on the bench for Southampton. One force change, though. Ginepri was in for the injured Armstrong. And for Manchester City, well, the bench looked half of the side that were out from performing most of last season. Fernandinho was there, Aguero, and Mahrez on the bench. Silva was in, and Ake was on the bench as well, and no Jesus, surprisingly. Sterling up front then. Anyway, we got going. Cavallo fired a shot at McCarthy from 12 minutes. 16 minutes, Sterling swept in an effort on goal from De Bruyne's cross, and that was the opening goal. I didn't actually see it. My highlights package went on the blink at that particular moment, but I have confirmed that Raheem Sterling opened the scoring from a cutback by De Bruyne on 16 minutes. The highlights were shocking on this one. Torres inches wide on added time, and then into the second half, not too much goal of action up at City's end. Their defence was very solid, although Adams' header was looped over. Southampton, they matched the City throughout, but they couldn't manage to create any chances, although Guardiola particularly picked out Prowse as the best dead ball specialist in the world. Well, I wouldn't go so far as that, but he certainly is very good. So Hasenhüttl, not too disappointed. His troops have performed really solidly, but they just missed out with that one goal. So final score then at St Mary's, Southampton 0, Manchester City 1. Goodison Park is the next venue for visiting, and this was Everton, who once again have won the last 2 and looked impressive. They were at home to struggling Arsenal, and already the noises are out that Arteta could be the next person to lose his job after Bilic was sent packing in the week. Team news. Pickford was back in goal after his rest in the week. And Alan was out with an injury. Davis deputising for him. Still no Hamas. He's still injured. For the Gunners, Louise was back in place of Gabriel. Not surprised after that performance. Niles was in. And an injury to Aubameyang meant that Nketiah was leading the line, which meant, surprisingly, Lacazette was on the bench. Pepe back after his suspension. 21 minutes, Iwobi got a cross in, which Lewin connected with, and it hit a defender and sailed past the keeper. So it was actually an own goal, but it was good enough for the Toffees to take the lead. 32 minutes, though, a rather poor challenge by Davis in the box felled Niles, and Pepe stepped up and restored parity, 1-1. Just before we got to the interval, Sigurdsson, a corner, and Mina, the Colombian, he's certainly a tower of strength, and he managed to get a head at the near post, and it sailed past Lino, and that was 2-1 for Everton. The second half, Arsenal huffed and puffed. Willian, he looked a shadow of the former player at Chelsea. Pickford made the odd error, but they couldn't really take advantage. Richarlison had a couple of chances, half chances, that he could have done better with. But basically, we ground to the finish line, and Everton had just about deserved it. A pretty woeful performance, it has to be said, by Arsenal. And there are now serious questions being asked as to whether Arteta is up for the job. Some of the players, though, were heavily criticised indirectly by Shearer on Match of the Day, suggesting that they're really not giving 100%. And that may well be so. It's the London factor, as I put it. You start playing for London clubs and you are sidelined with other interests. So anyway, the final score, a delighted Ancelotti, 3 wins on the bounce now. They're up to second. Everton 2, Arsenal 1. Saturday fixtures then was at St James Park, Newcastle against Fulham. Newcastle got a hiding at Ellen Road in the week, and they've also suffered quite considerably from the COVID, with quite a number of players having to be quarantined. Yedlin and Dennett were back in the defence. Joe Linton up front with Callum Wilson and Almiron on the left. Shelby restored in midfield for the Magpies. No St Maximum, not quite sure the extent of his injury. For Fulham, Caballero was injured, so Drokova, can't pronounce this man's name, Reed, he was in. And Lookman had a header on 11 minutes, which caused Darlow a bit of an alarm, but he handled it safely. 37 minutes, a shot on target from Almiron, but we got to 4 minutes from the break, and then from a corner, Oboyai, he plays for Fulham anyway, he managed to get his head goalwards, and it managed to find its way into the net, and Fulham went on finally off a Newcastle defender. Otherwise, it would have missed the target. But thanks to the defender, it went in, and that was 1-0 for the visitors. And they were well deserved of that lead. They played some good football in that first half. Controversy in the second, though, on 59 minutes. Wilson put through, and Henderson alongside him. And there seems to be some sort of collision following Anderson pulling Wilson back. The contact happened outside the penalty box, but of course Wilson then fell inside the box. The referee awarded a penalty, and then a yellow card, and then another look for VAR. And the defender was adjudged to have deliberately prevented a goal-scoring opportunity and not gone for the ball, so they changed the card to red. Callum Wilson stepped up and levelled with a neat penalty. Longstaff had a chance to get the winner, but Areola saved, and that was about it. It wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination. The Fulham coach was not happy with the red card decision, Parker, but he was happy with the performance. Final score at St James's Park, Newcastle 1, Fulham 1.